What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Boot Report. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and yes, I have the most epic kit on today. This is a goalkeeper jersey from the USA, United States of freaking America, from the 90s, the mid 90s. How sick is this? This is a retro kit. It's like a silver sheen looking thing. It's absolutely awesome. Okay, so section one, weekly news. Let's jump straight into it. Before we do, really quick, go and subscribe to the channel. Releasing 3 videos a week, so you guys have tons of epic football boot content coming your way. So, weekly news. The only story that I really want to cover in terms of actual football players and the footballers in the world is the stories revolving around what seems to be a completed deal with Trent going to Real Madrid. Now, I am an Arsenal fan, as you can see from my shorts. And frankly, I don't really care that Trent's going to Real Madrid because I'm also a Barcelona fan, and that's going to be great for us because Trent's defending is absolutely horrific compared to who they currently have, who debatably, in his position, is one of the most well-rounded players on the planet. I am not a Madrid fan, but Valverde is an incredible player. He is so fun to watch. He is incredibly well-rounded. Yes, he was a midfielder. Yes, he had all of these amazing things going for him in the midfield, but obviously he's getting pushed out with the likes of Camavinga and some of the wingers that they have. So they put him at right back, and all of a sudden he's like one of the best right backs in the world now. I know there were rumors of Alphonso Davies potentially going over to Real Madrid as well, but with his recent ACL tear, that's just like probably not going to happen too much, I don't think. But Trent to Real Madrid is kind of... There were rumors about it a while ago when he was sort of scoring all these crazy goals, and it was like Trent was the guy at Liverpool, and Klopp was putting him in the midfield sometimes, and he was actually quite fun to watch other than some of the defensive stuff. And he's not an athlete necessarily in terms of, again, he's a Premier League player. He's an incredible footballer. But his offensive capability was often a lot better than his defensive capability. That was pretty well known, pretty well documented. And that's obviously the way that they sort of played him to his strengths in a lot of ways. That being said, I don't think that Trent to Real Madrid is a good thing for Real Madrid. I think what they have currently going is incredibly effective. They have a right back who can get up and down the line. Valverde plays a lot like Hakimi does in a lot of ways, who's one of my favorite right wing backs to watch because he's just up and down. He does all the things that I used to really love doing. So being really dynamic going forward and also being able to track back. Again, I'm not a Real Madrid fan, and I surely am not a Liverpool fan. So, but I can only imagine as a Liverpool fan, if I was, I would be probably pretty pissed that Trent was leaving for Real Madrid. I think he has an opportunity at Liverpool to be a captain, to be a club man, to be, you know, the Stevie Gerrard of this generation. And I think him going to Real Madrid is a bummer. That being said, I also understand the prospect of like you grow up playing football and you grow up dreaming about going to your boyhood club dream, right? Maybe he followed Real Madrid when they were the Galacticos in the early 2000s, and that was when, you know, he started actually playing and getting game time at Liverpool and at the academy level, and like that was his dream. Then fair play. You can't crush a boy's dream, and you can't talk shit about a boy's dream. However, I don't think Real Madrid is making the right call. I don't think he's the player for them. And if Ancelotti, which he probably does, has some genius plan of how to implement Trent into the current rotation of players, amazing. But if not, it's like, what is this signing for? Is he just going to go over there and kind of flop? Are we going to see his career die, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. So from a player perspective, that's all I really want to cover this week. It's a huge news segment because of how big Trent is for the Liverpool aura, I guess you could say. You know, he's been a part of the title winning team. He's been part of the Champions League winning team, like all that stuff, right? Really, really good things. And a lot of pundits are also saying that he's now won everything at Liverpool, so let him go do his thing. Mad respect, no problem. I just think, I don't know, maybe it's not the same because the MLS is not the same caliber as the Premier League, but I'm sort of putting myself in Trent's position being like, okay, if Arsenal, or let's say I had a really long, successful career at the Seattle Sounders, which is my boyhood club, right? That's the club I grew up watching in my home city in Seattle. If Arsenal, Barcelona, Inter Milan, which are kind of my like three teams that I love, if those teams were to call on me and be like, hey, we need you to come, we want you to come play, it's a huge contract, would I go? Or would I say, I'm going to be a club man at Seattle Sounders? See, that for me, being a pro, having been a pro player, that's a really hard decision to make, because it's a club that you've always dreamed of playing at, right? At the Camp Nou, or at the, at San Siro or whatever. And so that's where it gets really complicated. And so from Trent's perspective, I just hope he has clarity of purpose in this move, and that he's doing it for the right reasons. And I'm sure he is and stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting move anyway, considering how much buzz has been around him as a Real Madrid prospect, but as a Liverpool player. Now, moving into the latest colorway drops for football boots. Now, we are going to talk only about football boots and maybe a little bit of running shoes, because I have some really cool stuff that I've been wearing recently that are super fun. Athleta came out with a new leather model called the Athleta Array Legado. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's a K-leather upper with an upgraded midfoot and similar sole plate to the Array T7, which is here. So this is the T7, and the T7 is Athleta Array T7 is a fabulous pair of football boots. As you can see, it's very, very wide, and the new Legado shares the exact same sole plate in FG, and then they also have the same AG sole plate, which is also shared with the Athleta Array T7 AG sole plate. Really nice premium quality leather. I've used these a bunch, and it's still so soft. If I put them on my feet, they just fit instantaneously well. They're a very wide football boot, so that is something I often recommend those for really wide-footed players as well. The next colorway is an absolutely sensational pair of Puma Ultra 5 and Ultra 5 carbons, which actually come into, so we're going to compare these later in the video, but ProDirect and Puma just did a collaboration of the sort of to celebrate F1 in Japan. F1 in Japan, the race happens in a week from today. Today is Sunday as of filming this video. Today is Sunday, the 30th of March. So happy April when we get there in a couple days. But they basically went and did a Japan-inspired, F1-inspired Ultra 5 and Ultra 5 carbon. And I really like some of the I think Puma right now is absolutely crushing the sort of non-remake special edition colorways. I think Puma does such a good job with them. Obviously, this one has some sort of, it looks a lot like the Mercedes race cars in F1 with that color combination. It reminds me, the new colorway for Japan, the Japan F1 is basically this colorway. So it's black, red, and gold, this beautiful like ruby red, or kind of like the flag of China or the Japanese flag with the red circle in the middle, the red dot. Very, very similar to that color, and it is absolutely beautiful. I think they look epic. You guys will obviously see some on-screen swipe throughs of some of the ProDirect media from it, but they look incredible in my opinion. And although maybe the Ultra 5 Carbon isn't my favorite boot, it is just, they look sleek, they look really sick, and the gold sole plate on the normal edition looks absolutely ridiculous, kind of like in a good way, similar to this one from this is a Speed Flow Plus, if you didn't know. So this is Adidas boot from 2022, I think, 22 or 23. And yeah, epic speed boot, amazing. But the new Ultra 5, super sick. So that for me is a 7+ out of 10. 7+, maybe even 8+ out of 10. I'm just a huge sucker for this colorway. Like I did a gold and red pair of custom Adler Yatagarasu. It's a colorway combo that I absolutely love. And yeah, it's just so sick. So those are cool. And then Adidas launched their Celestial Victory pack. Boring, to be honest. And this is a colorway pack that I we'll get into this later in terms of market report stuff, but Adidas has released 8 colorways now in 2025, and it's been 3 months. 8 colorways, 7 colorways. They've had Polar Victory, Celestial Victory, Cosmic Victory, the Moments pack, the black, white, and red ones that are not Moments, but the slightly different black, white, and red pack. I'm going to forget all of them, but it is ridiculous how many colorways Adidas is producing right now. And it's kind of annoying because it's taking a lot of the vibe away from the colorways that, in my opinion, are actually like properly good. And I think that, yeah, the Cosmic Victory looks kind of gross, honestly. The Copa is okay. It's like this color, kind of subtle silver with a pretty mellow pastel looking blue color. So that one actually is okay. The Predator is just too much. It's like they took Cosmic Victory and just shuffled the colors around, and it just, man, I'm just so color weighed out from Adidas and Nike. I think even Puma's not producing that many colorways now, and it's just annoying to me that Adidas and Nike are just saturating the market with kind of bullshit. So I don't know how you guys feel about it. Let me know in the comment section below. But I do think that there is a method to the insanity and the madness with Nike and Adidas in particular. And I'm wondering if it's one, are they trying to oversaturate the market to basically make it easier? Okay, so let's do simple math. Imagine that the top end football boot cost $100. It costs Adidas $20 to make. So there's $80 of margin that's sort of available to play with. If they saturate the market and they say, we're going to put colorway after colorway after colorway out of $100 football boots, and again, I know they're not $100. I'm just using it as an example. And they have to do outlet stuff at $80. Number one, it means that the more product there is in the market, potentially the more players are going to be wearing Adidas football boots, even if they're at a discount, but Adidas is still making $60 profit instead of $80 profit. Does that make sense? So that's one. The other option is just that we're at a point now where Adidas is completely lost, and instead of focusing R&D money on new and better sole plates and new and more exciting products, they're just going straight for sole plates, sole plates, colorways, which is, it's just annoying to me. And it's one of those things that you lose the excitement about a new colorway coming out. You lose, when the Messi Gold Edition first came out, and then, I mean, respectfully, I think this colorway is way better, right? I think this colorway is a lot better. But when that colorway came out, the Bad Bunny came out, we now have other photos of like different colorways from the Messi lineup coming. It like, okay, cool. Now they're not special anymore. Now the Hybrid Touch Messi edition isn't great. And since the regular F50 is kind of meh, why didn't you just make the Messi edition the regular F50 edition? I don't know. Bottom line is it's one of those things that I just get annoyed about. Okay. Next, we have the Under Armour Pitch Viper edition, which I'm sure you guys saw. It's inspired by the world's deadliest snakes, and it is pink and black, and it looks freaking awesome, in my opinion. So, full disclosure, I saw these almost a year ago, well before they went to market at the Under Armour headquarters, and they are different from the normal Shadow in that, let me grab... Can't actually see with these sunglasses in dark areas. So give me one sec. Okay, here we go. So Shadow 3. So this material right here, this little coating in red, the Pitch Viper edition has a little bit thicker coating on it because of the intensity of the graphic across the entirety of the upper, except for the little exposed knit through the lacing system area. Now, what that does to the boot is it actually makes it a little bit harder to break in, but it also makes it much more responsive, which this boot sort of sacrificed a little bit on the responsiveness side in exchange for the ability to basically fit everybody. This shoe is incredibly neutral in shape. It's got a really nice ergonomic midfoot and forefoot to it. It's going to fit most people. It's super, super comfortable. And yeah, it's a sole plate that could use some work, but like overall, this package is really excellent. The Pitch Viper basically takes what currently they have and moves it up to a little bit of a more intense level because they have that synthetic, it's probably some derivative of polyurethane coating over the entirety of that IntelliKnit upper, which is really, really cool. I think they look awesome. I think it makes this particular silo really stand out, and I'm hoping that they go with more colorways like that, because I do think that the Shadow 3 needs to feel special, and I think it can. I just think more colorways like this Pitch Viper color are going to be right on brand. So that's super, super sick. And the Pitch Viper, in my opinion, is like, well, I didn't rate the Celestial Victory pack. So Celestial Victory is like a 2 out of 10 for me. Pitch Viper is probably like a 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's pretty freaking awesome. And it looks great in person as well. Like even better than in the photos. All right. Boot leak releases. We have only a couple this week. So, and obviously leaks come in and out in a couple different sources. You guys will see sources up on screen as well. So the 3 Cosmic Speed colorways that I mentioned in last week's episode, I wanted to put a picture up on screen and kind of show you guys what those actually looked like. So they're basically big block metallic colorways. So there's like a gold edition, there's a red model, like a beautiful ruby red with a white swoosh. The gold has like a gold swoosh as well. So it's just like, it looks like liquid gold on feet. That's what they should be called. They should be called like Cosmic Speed Liquid Gold or something. That would be so sick. And then there's a sort of pinkish purple metallic with like an orangey swoosh type vibe. The red is definitely my favorite, and then the gold, and then the purple. So they look pretty cool. I'd probably rate the red, if it's like proper metallic red, I'm probably going to rate that like a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. The gold for me is like a 6.5 maybe, and then the purple is probably like a 4 or a 3 for me. I'm just not somebody who loves purple boots. Just don't really do it for me all that much unless it's like particular. Yeah, no, not really. Purple boots are kind of meh for me. Even like OG purple with the orange from that generation of Superfly was sort of like, meh, it's fine. I've had opportunities to buy them and I actually backed out of those purchases because I was just like, the colorway doesn't really do it for me. Then the second one that I want to talk about is the Mercurial Leak, which is the new, it looks still like a Vapor 16 Superfly 9, but they're redoing the graphics a little bit. Actually, not a little bit, a lot of it. And we are seeing the OGM Mercurial logo on the inside. So like here on the inside of the heel area, kind of like Mercurials of the past, which is really cool. And they're moving to a larger swoosh. So if I grab, actually the Blueprint colorway looks pretty on brand with what the new ones are supposed to be. So this is the Blueprint pack colorway. So see where this swoosh is. The ones on the leaks, which you guys will see in photos and stuff, it basically goes... It shifts the Nike swoosh to be like almost all the way around the upper, and then the M shows up here with the little swoosh on the inside. So this is obviously sort of a special edition-ish colorway of the Mercurial Vapor 16 Elite. And then the newer colorways and some of the colorways since this launch edition were a little bit different, but we're going back to a bigger, longer swoosh in this new kind of updated colorway, which is pretty cool. And then the third one, which we saw leaked, and this isn't really a leak in terms of getting them from Footy Headlines or something like that, or other pages that I follow, but we got a leak from the Uno Zero brand, and the Uno Zero brand put up a single photo of what looks like the upper, the toe box of potentially a new football boot or a new colorway. Those are really exciting. I'm thinking, well, how do I say this? I know what's going on, so it's hard for me to like keep my mouth shut. Okay, so Uno Zero has a leak. I'll just say this. I'll put the picture up on screen. Uno Zero has a leak. Curious in the description box below. What do you guys think? This product will be coming out, whether it's a new colorway of their current model or a new colorway, a new model, whatever it is, will be coming out in the next probably couple weeks. And all I can say is that it's really exciting. So yeah, Uno Zero has a leak. Very cool. I'm interested to know what you guys think of it. Have you worn a Uno Zero boot before? If not, why not? All that stuff. So very, very cool. Okay. Player boot sightings. Now, recently in the last couple of weeks, we had the Chelsea versus Liverpool Legends charity game. Some unbelievable players came out. Obviously, Crouch was all over the headlines because he scored a brace in the game. They won 2-0 against Chelsea. But an epic football boot display, which was really cool from some of the old players. And I just want to put some of the pictures up on screen of these players and highlight this week the player boot sightings from that game, because obviously we had some unbelievable players there who were wearing some really cool things. So starting off with Crouch, he was actually wearing the Wolf Gray Tiempo Legend 5 Elite, which is one of my all-time favorite football boots. That colorway with the Wolf Gray and the green, it's fine. Not my favorite, but that boot is absolutely sensational. And he was wearing a pair of Tiempo Legend 5s, which is freaking awesome for a number 9 center forward. You also had Gerrard, and he was wearing the Adidas Predator 25 Moments. So the new but the OG colorway with the new Predator 25, which was really cool. Zola was wearing a classic pair of Copa Mundials, as per usual. Absolute class player. There's a couple of videos of him online of him teaching free kicks that are just ridiculous. Like, he still is an absolute wizard on the ball, which is awesome. He was an epic player to watch. And then Sissoko was wearing the Copa Pure 2 Elite, which was interesting because the new one is, in my opinion, objectively better. This is probably just a pair that he has that he just wore for that particular game. Or otherwise, Adidas, if he was sponsored by Adidas, he would have just worn, like Gerrard with the new Predator Moments, he would have worn whatever the new Copa. So he was in a pair of Copa Pure 2 Elites, which is pretty interesting there as well. All right, section 2, we're talking boots. Okay, now straight away into the weekly boot comparison. Now, the weekly boot comparison is brought to you by my sunglasses. And the weekly boot comparison is between the Puma Ultra 5 and the Ultra 5 Carbon. Now, this is a comparison that I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in. Number one, we are going to talk about some of the performance stuff a little bit later, other than to rank again, per usual. If you didn't see last week's episode, I rate in each week's comparison, I rate sole plate, upper quality, the upper, how it feels and everything, heel, comfort, performance, lace area, and X factor. So 8 categories. And if we have a tie break, if it's like 4v4, then I'll tell you which one I like better. But usually there's a winner for each one because either one wins by more points or there's just one that's like pretty obviously better. But in this case, there's some pretty cool features of each one, which I think you guys will enjoy. Some of you will have worn one or both of these boots before, so definitely stay tuned for which one at the end. And I think it's pretty obvious which one I'm going to pick, but that being said, without further ado. So, very similar design philosophy, i.e. identical design philosophy, with slightly different applications. So, the uppers feel slightly different. This one feels a little more textile, whereas this one feels a little bit more kind of synthetic / knit with this synthetic or this kind of sticky coating to it. The heel areas are nearly identical. The only difference really, they both have ortholite, they both have the same heel padding. Really the difference comes in the Ultra 5 Carbon having these little kind of floppy element things. This isn't really all that necessary and it doesn't affect performance at all. It's just something that's there and kind of makes it look a little bit more premium, I guess, even though I kind of prefer a no BS kind of look to it, but needless to say. And then there's the obvious difference, which is the sole plate. Now the sole plate lasts are identical in terms of length and in terms of stud layout and shape. So they've We got the exact same stud layout and shape. The only differences are, number one, obviously the material being carbon and then being more of a plastic compound. And then there is a rigidity kind of dealio here in the midfoot. That's a very unspecific and unprofessional thing to say. There is essentially a shank here in the midfoot to compromise for some of the stiffness that you will get with the carbon. Obviously, they wanted to make this perform just as well, and it definitely does in terms of stiffness through the midfoot. So without further ado, sole plate, what do I think? So in terms of sole plates, we'll get into this later, but there is a point at which sole plates are actually too aggressive and too snappy for most people. I wrote a recent, this week's newsletter that's coming out is about sole plate stiffness and the effect on performance. So if you aren't already subscribed, make sure you go down in the link down below to subscribe to my newsletter, because I talk about some really cool things that have to do with football boots and biomechanics and all that stuff as well, like from a science-based perspective. And so there's an obvious reason why Puma created the Ultra 5 Carbon and the Ultra 5 Carbon sole plate, because it's their halo model, right? It makes the rest of the marketing around these two football boots really easy because it's a carbon sole plate. No one else is doing it other than the Shadow series, and realistically, this one is actual carbon and this one is carbon fiber, but it's just not the same. So it's one of the only boots that has carbon fiber in it. It's absolutely crazy looking, and the performance and the aggression actually suits the way it looks. It is almost overkill in terms of the amount of crazy snapback that you get, almost to the point of being too much. And I talk about this in the newsletter, but basically every player, actually, I'm going to save this for later. Bottom line is, from my perspective, the sole plate of the regular Puma Ultra 5 wins out, because that sole plate is really fun and aggressive to play in, but it's not overkill. Now, in terms of upper quality, so I don't know if it's just this particular colorway of the Ultra 5 Carbon, but I actually think this feels a lot cheaper than this one. This one feels really well put together. It feels like almost like a one-piece knit material or synthetic woven material. And you can hear, I don't know if you'll be able to hear the differences, but I'll put both up to show you the differences between what I'm talking about. So this is the regular Ultra 5, right? So you can barely hear anything. It's very fluid, but then there's almost like it almost feels like there's a piece of like tissue paper underneath this. Listen to this. Hear that? It's almost like a staticky sound. So that's why this one, on feet, they feel virtually identical. I would say that the stiffness of this upper on the regular Ultra 5 is a little bit more responsive and a little bit stiffer. So I'm actually going to give the upper to the regular Ultra 5 as well. I just think it's a little bit more enjoyable to play in. And because of the coloring that they've gone for, the regular Ultra 5 actually has a lot more grip on it. So from a quality perspective, that's what I'm going to go for. Similar to just the general upper, the shape is identical, but the way that the sole plate interacts with the upper, I'm going to give the upper as well to the regular Ultra 5. Now, from a heel area perspective, I actually like the heel on the Carbon a little bit better. It's a little bit more narrow, as you can see, so it's got a little bit of a tighter fit, and that really helps in terms of lockdown, particularly when you're working with two sole plates that are very, very aggressive. Now, from a comfort perspective, which one is better? Now, I probably would actually say the Carbon is a little bit more comfortable. However, the interaction between the sole plate and the upper create a sensation on feet that's not as comfortable as this one. So even though the upper on the Carbon is actually feels a little bit softer in general, I actually am going to give the comfort to the Ultra 5. Now, from a performance perspective, it's really hard to argue that the Carbon sole plate is going to be the one that wins out. I think if you are somebody, which we'll get into in a minute, that can actually take advantage of the stiffness of the Ultra 5 Carbon, the performance is objectively going to be snappier. It's going to be crazy aggressive. And I think that from an objective performance perspective, you have to give it to the Ultra 5 Carbon. Now, the lacing area, This is an easy one because they are identical. They're exactly the same on both models in terms of literally every single piece of them. They've got a really nice lacing system, in my opinion. The double lace loop on every single one of these, like every single one of the times that the lace goes into one side or the other, they have this displacement where you can kind of pull the laces tight way deeper into the upper compared to other uppers on the market or other lacing systems on the market. Most lacing systems literally just cover basically the top kind of 4 or 5 points right where the exposed knit turns into the, I guess, coated knit, if you will. And that's where the lacing system is. So there's only a little bit of ability to pull the laces tied together. But with this one, with the Ultra 5, they've gone for lace holes that are way deeper on either side of the boot, which really helps with a crazy amount of lockdown. So lacing system area is a tie. Now, in terms of the X factor, there's no discussion here. The X factor goes to the Ultra 5 Carbon. This is an absolutely crazy looking football boot. The new Japan F1 colorway looks absolutely amazing and epic and in every way. And I love them, and I might buy both because I think they're sick. So from a Ultra 5 perspective, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and a tie. So 5 points goes to the Ultra 5 Carbon. And then in the Carbons argument, we have 1, 2, 3, and a tie. So 4. So it's 4-5 with the winner being the Ultra 5 Normal Edition, which, to be honest with you, that was going to be the one that I would pick anyway. And this is the boot that I really, really enjoy wearing, despite them having maybe a little bit of issues in terms of I'd rather have the heel on the other one. And then from an objective performance perspective, this one is better. But I think in terms of what I actually can take advantage of and what most consumers can actually take advantage of in terms of sole plate stiffness, the Ultra 5 is the way to go. Hashtag Wear Your Boot Wednesday winner goes to @TexasCleatCollector, Justin, actually a buddy of mine, and he wore a pair of, so for Wear Your Boot Wednesdays, for those of you who don't know, on Wednesday, your current time, so if you live in Europe, Wednesday, your time, America, Wednesday, it'll happen over the course of about a 36-hour period because of where everybody is in the world, but you submit your stuff with the hashtag Wear Your Boot Wednesday, tag me in the story. The boots must be actually on your feet. I get a lot of people who are like, Wear Your Boot Wednesday. It's like, no, I don't want your face in it. Number one, I don't want your feet in it. I want your feet in the freaking football boots. That's what Wear Your Boot Wednesday means. So post on Instagram, tag me. I will repost you, and I will pick a winner for every single week. Texas Cleat Collector Justin wins with a beautiful white, blue, and black pair of T90 Laser 2s. And those are sensational, and he knows what he is talking about because they are sick. So, performance breakdown now. We are going to talk about... Is that the only winner? Yeah, it is the only winner. Okay, cool. Performance breakdowns. So, now moving back really quickly to the... Wait, let's take a sip first. Hydrate or dihydrate, baby. Okay, so from a performance breakdown, I know I mentioned sole plates, and this is a really interesting thing that I did a bunch of research on for the newsletter that I put out this week. And the newsletter is all about sole plate stiffness and whether sole plate stiffness actually makes a tangible performance benefit for your football boots and your footwear. Obviously, I have two pairs of running shoes, which I'll get into in just a little bit. But you have, in the same way that you have running shoes with carbon plates, running shoes without carbon plates, football boots with carbon plates, football boots without carbon plates, there is really sort of and with a growing audience for people who want the barefoot football boots, which I've been hearing about recently. I actually had a pair a long time ago, several years ago now, that were interesting. I have more thoughts on that, but in terms of performance and actual tangible things that will add to your game, does carbon plated shoes and does sole plate stiffness actually make a difference in the way that you perform? That is a very complicated answer. And the way that I can break it down based on my research, and again, this research is based on actual scientific articles that have been written. I'll try to leave some links down below to the actual articles that I was reading in scientific journals, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them are talking about longitudinal stiffness. So the stiffness from here to here. So they're talking about the stiffness as you bend the boot this way, not as you bend the boot torsionally, like laterally that way. Now, most football boots won't have a lot of torsional stiffness or lateral stiffness, but a lot of the boots that are being marketed to us nowadays have varying levels of longitudinal stiffness. Now, every athlete is different, and research shows that you have to break it up into the pro athlete slash high level athlete and amateurs and youth players. What's generally been found is, number one, pro athletes actually are really the only cohort that can actually take advantage of and have the leg strength to take advantage of a carbon plate like this. Players who are amateurs or who have never been full-time footballers, even youth players, I would argue, don't have the actual capacity to wear a pair of carbon-plated shoes. That goes the same for carbon. These are Alpha Fly 3s from Nike. The same, they're the carbon-plated marathon shoes. In the same way that you shouldn't be wearing, it's actually bad for you because you up injury risk and you lower performance if you don't have the lower leg strength and ankle foot stiffness to be able to handle the amount of load that has to go into this for you to get the performance benefit. So that's point one. Point two is that across the board, pros, amateurs, youth players, every single athlete has a sweet spot of the ideal amount of sole plate stiffness or carbon plated running shoe or whatever of longitudinal stiffness that will be good for their performance. It almost looks like sort of a up, and then it drops off. That drop off point happens at the point where the plate or the sole plate or what midsole or whatever it is gets too stiff for that individual athlete to actually take advantage of. And so what happens is a lot of players will look at the differences between these two and be like, well, I'm going to get a carbon plated shoe and I'm going to go for the ultra carbon because it's going to help me run faster. Respectfully, if you're an amateur athlete, it won't. It will actually make you run slower and you'll be at a higher risk of injury. As that graph goes down, as it dips at the point where the sole plate stiffness becomes too much for that particular athlete, you start to increase injury risk because now you're running on a piece of material that you don't have the strength to actually like force into to get that snapback. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm super passionate about this because I think this is a massive deal for marathon runners, cross-country runners, track athletes, Ironman athletes, all that type of stuff who wear two types of running shoes, the non-carbon ones and then the carbon ones. Because I see so many in the triathlete world, so many runners who are running 5-minute Ks, 5:30 Ks, 6-minute Ks, which again, if that's the fastest you can go, that's amazing. That's so beautiful that you're out doing stuff. I'm not making a comment about you have to be an elite athlete. What I'm saying is there is a very tight sweet spot of what actually works best for you. And a lot of the athletes that I see doing their morning Sunday jog at a 10-minute per mile pace or like a 6.5 minute per K pace in a pair of Alpha Flies, I look at and go, oh my God, dude, you are totally, number one, ruining your biomechanics and your running efficiency, but you're also putting yourself at really high risk of injury in your foot, your ankle, and your lower limbs. That's the exact same as a boot like this and other boots. Now, I think Under Armour has kind of nailed it because that's actually not super, like there's a pretty good amount of flex to this, and it looks a lot more aggressive than it actually feels on feet. So in terms of the difference between these two carbons, all carbons are not created equal, in the same way that if you bend a pair of the carbon-plated or carbon insoles, like the Victory insoles or something like that, those are actually more along the lines of these. So it's more geared towards kind of the majority of that gap of like, okay, we want to increase stiffness just to the point where the boot becomes beneficial for performance, as opposed to going this direction. And not to say that this is a bad idea, but just going this direction, which is like, let's create the most aggressive thing regardless of the person who's going to wear it. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm really interested in this topic and I'm super passionate about this because performance footwear is like what I do. This is what I absolutely love. Like, I don't care about any other types of foot. Like, I love boots that you wear with a suit, but like outside of that, I don't care about Jordans. I don't care about tennis shoes. Like, I get what's basically given to me for free. And that's what I wear. Whereas with performance footwear, both on the boot side and with the running shoe side, I'm very passionate about people getting boots that, number one, fit their feet the best, but number two, are actually the ideal amount of performance for what they're doing and what their personal physiological capabilities are. That to me is beyond everything else that I do in terms of reviewing and everything like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that segment. That's kind of a performance breakdown of the Ultra 5 versus the Ultra 5 Carbon. I genuinely think with how aggressive they've made this carbon plate, I think that the Ultra 5 Carbon should be only used by professional players, only on FG surfaces or SG surfaces. That is my genuine recommendation. If you are somebody who wants this type of vibe, I get it. The carbon looks really cool. I get it. The carbon is epic and it's awesome. It's what Nike used to have. It's what Under Armour has. It's like what the Carbitex insert on these guys used to be. But again, look at the difference between that, right? Like that's actually a decent amount of flex to it. This one is probably the most flexy of the carbons. And then you have this one, same pressure applied, and I'm barely, that's like 30 degrees, not even 45 degrees. Ugh. That's like a proper arm workout. So again, choose the boots that are gonna be best for your performance and your feet, not what the hype train says. Buy the regular Ultra, not the Ultra 5. Unless you are a pro player watching this, then do whatever the hell you want because you actually have the leg strength to sort it out. All right. Next segment, which I'm actually adding, is I'm going to give you guys some teasers of what's in the pipeline. So we have a couple different boots in the pipeline. We have 2 boots from a brand that makes their boots in Korea, which is Definiv, DEFINIV. You guys might have seen them on the internet. Very, very cool. And they create all turf models. And I'm going to give you, I have 2 pairs that are coming down the pipeline, but I'm going to show you, give you a teaser of one of their pairs. And this is their synthetic pair at a mid-cut level. Really, really nice and interesting synthetic here. And they have the sort of very similar, so they market this as a carbon sole plate, carbon infused sole plate, very, very similar to the Skechers. So it's not necessarily a carbon plate. It's more of a carbon inspired, and there's like carbon bits in here. But that's the sole plate, which is turf. So you can see it's actually a lot more aggressive than most turf models or TF models, but they are meant for really kind of that hybrid of turf and maybe really, really, really short grass if you wanted to go there. So those are really cool. And then I also, which I'm not going to show you, I have a second pair, which are their leather model in turf. And then I also have a pair of FG sort of pseudo prototype boots from Specs, which is an Indonesian brand, one of the biggest Indonesian brands in the country. And they are absolutely wild looking, which I am so excited to show you guys. So those are coming. And then, as I mentioned before with the Uno Zero leak, that particular product, well, it's a pair of boots of some sort. That pair of boots is going to be on the way. I will be reviewing that potentially for the actual launch of the boot itself. So those are kind of the 3 main things that are coming down the road, as well as potentially a Pitch Viper review. We will see. And then maybe a couple other things coming down the pipeline as well. So very, very exciting. So in terms of footwear that I have been wearing, this is another segment that I want to get into in the boot talk section. So footwear I've been wearing this week has been, I just ran in these this morning for the first time. This is the Adidas Adizero Evo SL. This is a non-carbon plated, but still pretty springy. They have the Light Strike Pro foam, which is, by the way, the same foam that is in the F50 Plus. So the laceless with that Light Strike foam. Same foam that's in here. Very responsive, super lightweight from, as you can probably tell from the SL name. So these have been awesome to run in. I did my first run today. Little bit of hot spots on the side of my foot per usual, but these not only look absolutely amazing. I actually bought the race shoe version of these, which I have in a box over there, which I may show you next week. But those are absolutely insane looking, and they look very, very similar to these ones. But the Adizero Evo SL, very, very cool running shoes and really great for most people because as long as the upper fits you, this is like a pretty neutral running shoe, sort of an everyday trainer type of vibe that are very, very comfortable. So these have been awesome to run in. I have also been running, I don't have them with me right now, but I've been wearing the New Balance SC Trainer, which is a carbon plated high stack height trainer. So it's a trainer that's got more foam than this in the base of the shoe, in the outsole. So it's a huge stack height. They're actually illegal in Ironman racing because they're so high. The stack height is so high, it gives you sort of an advantage in terms of like the cushion you get, plus it's carbon plated and all that stuff. That carbon plate is a lot more forgiving, but it does give you that little bit of extra snap. So that SC Trainer is like the perfect long run with efforts in between. So if, let's say I have an hour and a 90-minute run and I've got like zone 2 warm up, I've got a little bit of zone 3 to get going, and then I've got like over unders, which is like zone 4, zone 5, then zone 2, then zone 4 and zone 5, almost like a fartlek run, right? Like you go really fast for 30 seconds and then you walk or you slow down for 30 seconds and then you do that like section twice. If it's a really long one with efforts in it, those New Balance SC trainers are absolutely incredible, and they come in a wide fit variation as well. Obviously, I'm not like sponsored by any of these companies. I'm just telling you this is what I'm wearing. The other one is I recently ran a race a week ago today, and this was my race day shoe, which is the absolutely freaking sick. They match my glasses. And in terms of just like vibe. So these are the Nike Alpha Fly 3, which I wore for the race, the half Ironman in Geelong, or the 70.3 Ironman in Geelong, which is about an hour away from Melbourne where I live. And it was such a beautiful race day. And I got 20th in my age group, which was cool. It was a little bit of a disappointing run, if I'm honest, but I biked really well. I was 9th fastest out of the water. So in my age group, I was number 9, so top 10, and then I was also number 9 in the bike. So bike split was really good, swim split was really good, and then the run just was not as good as I thought. So those are 3 trainers that I've been wearing this week, and you guys can continue to enjoy that section as well. All right, moving on to the market report. So resale market trends first. It seems to me like more dealers across Instagram, because that's kind of what I pay most attention to. Yes, I'll look at StockX. Yes, I'll look at GOAT. I'll look at occasionally some other websites and stores, in fact, because some in-person stores like Soccer USA OKC, which is they're a great store. They do stuff online as well, but a lot of their stuff is on Instagram, and then they have an in-person store, but they actually have some throwback boots as well that they'll like incorporate into selling. That's sort of a hybrid scenario. The majority of the market that I pay attention to is on Instagram and eBay to some extent as well, and some other and Facebook Marketplace are basically kind of the 3 main places that I look. It really seems like the major players in the industry, the dealers that I'm looking at, are focusing less and less on really cool retro boots like Tiempo Legend 5s, old Superflies, Hypervenoms, all that stuff, old Tiempos and things like that. And they're focused more on boots within the last 3 to 5 years, things that potentially still have warranties, and things that boots that are either current models that they've gotten out of the factory from connections that they have, and they're able to sell them for 30%, or not 30%. If they're able to sell them for 50 to 80% of retail, they'll do that, and then people will start to buy from the Instagram resellers, or their boots from the last 3 to 5 years. So I've seen Speed Portals pop up a bunch, which is like a 2023 or 24 release, right? Or 23 release. There are things like what else have I seen recently? A lot of the previous generation Ultra Ultimate, which obviously there's probably a lot of stock of because no one likes that shoe at all because they're absolute dog shit. What else have I seen? A lot of New Balance, so like Tequilahs and Furons from the previous past couple years. Although there isn't as much of that, it's a lot of Nike and Adidas stock, and that's sort of been oversaturating the resale market, and they're going for absolutely ridiculous prices in terms of like how cheap you can get them now. And so for me, this is interesting because there are limited dealers now who have access to what we would in the industry now call retro models. So if we look at the wall behind me, the Superfly 2 and 3s are retro. Hypervenom is a 2017 model, so that's definitely retro. We're talking like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I think anything, I would say for sure anything a decade older is for sure retro, because that's like a real pair of the 2014 Hybrid Touch Audi Zero F50s. Definitely a retro boot now because it's over a decade old. You could argue, Hypervenom 1 was a 2013 release. That's retro now. Tiempo Legend 10 Tiempo Legend 5, is also retro release. Puma Evo Power 1.2, those types of boots. Those boots are very hard to find now, which is also why we'll get into in the next section, the notable boots resurfacing. There are less and less dealers who are focusing on that vibe because there's probably a balance between when somebody goes out and is looking for an old boot, they realize or they say to themselves, I mean, I get questions about this all the time on my Instagram. Noah, I'm looking at a pair of GX2s and a pair of Hypervenom 3s that I found on a resale market. Which should I buy? And honest to goodness, hand on heart, I say go buy the GX2. Because respectfully, you're going to buy those Hypervenom 3s and you're going to rip through them within the first training session or two because they're just older now and they don't have the same stitching. The glue has gone to shit now. There's a lot of other things that have gone into that boot deteriorating that you guys probably don't understand. And it's fairly straightforward. Like I'm not trying to baby you or anything, but I'm just saying when you're looking at a pair of retro boots, I think a lot of dealers are finding that collecting football boots is not a thing that a lot of people are doing quite yet, or that generation hasn't gotten to the point where they're making their money and they're sort of buying up all of the stock of that stuff now. And so they're focusing on the boots that are actually going to make them money, which is fair enough. So that's what I'm seeing in as far as resale market trends. Now, as far as notable boot surfacing, I have 3 shout outs to make this week. And again, this is stuff that I find just on Instagram. So at Reboot Cycle posted a really cool photo of the matching Hypervenom 1 black and orange, Phantom Ultra black and orange, and then the Flyknit Ultra in black and gold. But in the photo, it's edited to look almost basically black and orange. And that photo is so beautiful, and it's so cool to see all of these different generations of football boots. Obviously, Hypervenom 1 came out in 2013, I believe. Flyknit Ultra was 17, Phantom Ultra was 22. And so you have these just incredible boots, like these 3 absolute goats of the football boot world in one photo. So Reboot Cycle, go blow up that post. I think it looks absolutely sick. And Reboot Cycle has some pretty cool stuff going on. At Boot Supplier Oz, Boot Supplier AUS or Australia, right, has my grail pair of blue Flyknit Ultras for sale in an 8.5 US. So it's a half a size too small, but I am that close to purchasing them because that particular colorway is one of the most beautiful football boots I've ever seen in my life. When it first came out, I was like, I have to have these someday. They are so incredibly beautiful, and I just can't describe to you how amazing that football boot is. So Boot Supplier Oz, if one of you guys gets there before me, I will give you a shout out when you prove to me that you've bought those shoes. Send me a picture of the boots if you've bought them from Boot Supplier. And then at RF Boots has also in my size, 9 US, a pair of Puma Evo Power Vigor camos, which was like the original kind of pre-launch colorway, Evo Power Vigor ones, which is a white, black, and what they called green gecko pair. So it's like this crazy weave of, and it looks like a camouflage thing. It looks very off-putting. It's like you take a photo of that, and it looks like when car brands do drive their prototypes around with the crazy paneling and colorways and stuff so that you can't really see what the body lines are. That Puma Evo Power Vigor. So RF boots, I might be hitting you up because, we've already spoken recently, but those Evo Power Vigors, man, I kind of want to get them for the collection because the Vigor was such a cool, it was one of the original all knit football boots, all knit power boots. It's like what GX 1 and 2 and Hypervenom 3 sort of all came out of. So anyway, Vigor 1, such a cool pair of football boots. I'm a massive Evo Power fan. You can see them right here. Evo Power was like one of my favorite football boots ever created. I think they're so sick. And really cool, interesting sole plate technology with some of the discussions we had about stiffness and stuff with those boots as well, which is really interesting. I can get into that if you're interested at some point. And then in terms of limited edition releases, I did mention this before, but I just want to make a quick shout out again to that Puma and Pro Direct limited edition Ultra 5 and Ultra 5 Carbon for Japan F1. Japan F1 happens a week from today. So the Sunday, the April 6th, I'm actually going over to a good family friend's house in Melbourne, and we're going to be watching the game, eating Japanese food, and watching the game. Look at me, watching the race. And I'm just super excited. I don't actually have an F1 team yet. I haven't decided what I want to go for, but yeah, there's some pretty F1's just freaking awesome. It's so fun to watch, and I got into it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine from watching the Netflix series because I'm still only in season 2, but it is absolutely awesome and it's so fun. And I'm such a petrol head anyway. So limited edition releases, and then stock availability and drops. Again, really quick section, really quick here. Overstocked for most retailer locations with how many colors are happening right now. I've talked to people at Ultra. I've talked to people at Unisport, ProDirect, Soccer.com. Seemingly, everybody's like, we have so much stock of stuff, and stuff is selling, but we're sitting on a lot, which is a bummer because it seems like the boot companies, the Adidas, the Puma, the Nike, the Mizuno not as much obviously, but the big two, I would say, Adidas and Nike, are just completely oversaturating dealers. They're oversaturating the primary, secondary, and tertiary markets, and it just is freaking crazy. Which, by the way, anytime I say that, primary market is you buy straight from Adidas. Secondary market is, and I would argue primary market is also like you buy them from soccer.com. But primary market usually means wholesale to retailer. So the transaction between Adidas and soccer.com, or Adidas and Ultra, or Adidas and Unisport, that's primary market because it's resale. It's at wholesale value. Secondary market would be you buying from, or me buying from Unisport or one of those other resellers. Tertiary market is like I go and buy from an Instagram dealer who's gotten it from the factory or from soccer.com or whatever. That's how I at least look at it. If I'm wrong, leave a comment down below. Now, moving on to section 4, questions. Your questions. You can ask your questions at www.noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. Every week I pick the top questions. Today we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. And I will be answering the top questions from you and giving you a first name shout out because I don't want people to know last names. All right. Edward asks, why are some boots so much easier to find than others? Simple answer, stock availability. Some boots are just really, they have a ton of stock. And for perspective, let's say I'll use Ultra Football as an example because that's who I work with on a more frequent basis, on a regular basis. Ultra projects what they're going to sell in, let's say, the SKU, the SKU, the Adidas Predator Elite 25 fold over tongue. So they'll buy, let's say, 100 pairs of the new Victory Pack, Celestial Victory Pack, assuming that they're going to sell 100 pairs. Every colorway is slightly different. So from Adidas, they'll buy different different versions. Occasionally, they buy 100 pairs and there's demand for 150. Also, sometimes they buy 100 and there's only demand for 50. So that kind of gives you a perspective of sometimes resellers and distributors and all that stuff sometimes get it wrong in terms of what's available and what's not available. So if you want a colorway that's really highly sought after, but all of these resellers looked at the catalog for the year and went, that colorway, don't think it's going to be as popular, so we're not going to order very much of it. Guess what? There's not a lot of stock. So there's that. And then there's also no stock, or you can't find a boot because you're looking for a boot that doesn't exist in your market. Take, for example, the Asics DS Lite X-Fly 5 Special Edition. If you want this boot, you have to go looking in only one of maybe two places. That is at Tokyo Football, tokyofootball.sg, which is a website and a Instagram handle, or you go to eBay and find a dealer out of Japan that's going to sell you these, because this is a Japan-only variant. Take also, for example, the Japan-only HG model of the Copa Icon 2 that I've been posting recently in white and gold. The only reason that it was a special collaboration between Soccer Shop Kamo, which is a soccer shop in Japan. It's one of the biggest soccer shops in Japan, and Adidas, presumably the Adidas Japan people. So they did a collab that's theoretically supposed to only be for Japan, but people like me and people around the world can get them through dealers or people who source boots like Andrew Lockhart or Lockhart Boot Blog, if you want to look him up on either Instagram or on his actual blog. So he sourced those for me. So you really have to get creative when you come to me with questions of like, why can't I find this boot? It's like, well, you didn't do any research, so I'm not going to help you out, because that's the thing. But that's why some boots are more easy to find than others. Davide, Davide, David, I'm going to mispronounce your name and I apologize, says, when was the first time that a boot brand asked you for feedback? Great question. The first time a boot brand asked for feedback directly would have been a while ago. When I first started reviewing football boots, the first time I got this is a good question. I don't know how to categorize the answer for this, because there's like when I started getting prototype boots and or like released pair of boots, you know, getting these before they released or trying on these before they released. And then there's like being a part of the prototype testing process. So I'll answer it two different ways. So I first started getting sort of pre-release boots and people started being like, no, what do you actually think of these boots? Even though this colorway is normal and it's going to be available to people and we're already done with it, but we want to know your thoughts for the next generation. That probably started in 2021, late 21, early 22, which was pretty cool. So got some really cool stuff from New Balance and actually Skechers when they were first doing their prototypes. So got that. And then in terms of actual prototype testing, like boots that will not exist to the public ever, and are in our iteration, you know, version 1, version 2 of like actual prototypes coming from the factory, from a brand that's like, we're trying to change this, this, and this. What do you guys think? Can you do testing? For those of you who don't know, I'm a performance footwear consultant. So I actually go and test prototype football boots and running shoes. And so that is something that I love doing for all the different brands, and I give feedback, and it's a very comprehensive process. It takes about 2 months to do at the top level. And, you know, I meet with the senior design executives and all that stuff. It's the best job in the world. That probably started about 2 years ago. So that was more recent, because it did take time for me to, number one, build expertise, but also for me to sort of build a stack of evidence with my YouTube and my Instagram that I actually knew what I was talking about, and that I was interested in the biomechanics of humans and the way it interacts with the football boots and blah, 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 blah. Joao asked, Hypervenom 3 or Predator Rotero? That's not even a question in my mind. The Predator Rotero is an excellent, excellent football boot. It is the modern day, it's what modern day Predator, I think, for pred heads should be. It's a leather Predator that's awesome. And that fusion skin upper is actually excellent. It is the one that I have behind me. You can see Predator David Beckham, which is the same as Rotero, and then obviously the Hypervenom 3, kind of kitty corner from each other. Hypervenom 3 is the best boot of all time for me. And so there's no competition there, but I would be really happy wearing Predator Rotero the rest of my life. I think it's an excellent pair of football boots. Etienne asks, did you already punch a runner's loop lace hole in a boot? Fabulous question. I have my tools right here, and the answer is yes. Although I can't show those to you because those are speaking of prototypes, those are a pair of prototype football boots, but there are some boots that I would like to punch holes in, which you guys will see very, very soon. So I've got a couple tools here, which I want to show you. And this bad boy, and I mean, scissors are scissors, but I'll show you anyway the process. I will do a video on this very, very soon, I promise. So there's a couple different things that go into this process. So I just bought these. I'll leave links for all of these tools down below in the description box. So if you're interested in like buying boots and then putting runner's loops into them, you can do that. This is a tool that is a leather hole puncher. So these are different. If you can see that, oh, it's still focusing on, there you go. Basically different circumferences of these little hole punch things that I can move. See how it snaps? Ready? So you can hear it as it snaps into place. And then basically you put the thing right there and then you squeeze really tight, and there's a little, each of these edges is like basically sharp. It's not like sharp, but it's sharp enough that it'll punch a hole through a synthetic or a leather material. Do I have a pair of boots that I can just show you on? This is going to take too long. It doesn't matter. Point being, you punch a hole in it. And then this one is actually just basically a big, so if I open this up, this is what's called this is actually for like roofing and paneling and stuff. But it's essentially, oh, it's stuck, bloody heck. Okay, so this is a really sharp edged separator. So you put this through, you punch the hole, and then it's really small, and then you push this through, and you basically stuff this in, and it basically widens the hole to whatever, like wherever you go up on here is wider and wider and wider. Obviously, you don't want to go all the way up there because it's way too wide. But the idea is that you can punch holes and stuff and then make it as wide as you want it to be without going overboard. Then obviously some scissors if you really need to get in there. But yeah, so I'll leave those tools down below. But I have not. I will definitely do a video on that soon, so stay tuned. Nolan asks, best boots with conical studs and a soft upper. So first of all, any upper that fits you is going to be the best boots with conical studs and an upper. You can find the AG version, you can find the FG version, whichever you decide will have conical studs. If I was to say one boot, I'll give you a normal release kind of that's everywhere available, and then I'll give you also a release that you definitely should go try and find because they are objectively the boots that I think make the most difference. So boot that is available pretty much everywhere, soft upper conical studs, Morelia 2. Hands down, best football boot on the market in terms of the most premium soft feeling upper you're ever going to find. If you want a little bit more performance and conical studs with a really soft upper, the Asics DS Lite X-Fly Pro 3, which is a synthetic silky wrap upper, conical studs, it's absolutely sensationally soft. And it feels debatably even softer than a lot of the leather boots on the market now, because a lot of them are moving away from K-leather and moving more towards that like Taurus or like calfskin leather. So those are my two recommendations, Morelia 2, DS Lite X-Fly Pro 3. Jose asks, what would be a good 1-to-1 match for the original Predator Pulse in today's market? Ooh. Predator Pulse. I mean, the Rotero is probably the closest. Like it is. I know it's a Predator. That's a cop out answer. I would say the Pulse was leather, so you have to kind of go leather. What's leather? There's really nothing with leather and grip elements other than the Rotero or the David Beckham Predator nowadays. So that's probably like the closest thing you're going to get to that type of boot. Honestly, the first thing that came to my mind, I know this is such a wild shout that, and I don't really think this boot is very good, but the Under Armour Magnetico 4 is like somewhat of a power boot that not a lot of people talk about, partially because it's not a great football boot, but that's like a close one. I'm trying to think of what else. What else do I have around here? Yeah, maybe that one. I would also say that I know it doesn't have grip elements, but the Copa Gloro 2, so the this guy with the tongue, fold over tongue, calfskin leather, very, very similar to kind of the vibe of that Pulse. I know that's such a crazy shout, but this is a budget friendly option that would be great. So this might be a good option for you. But honestly, like as much as it pains me to say, they don't make Predators like they used to. And so I think if you want like a proper leather Predator, you have to go out and buy the Rotero or the David Beckham. Christian, wow, that's a beautiful way to spell that. This person spells it Kristijan. Christian. That's a really cool spelling, dude. Dude or dudette. I don't know if that's a girl or a guy. So, do you think there's a new Magista style silo coming soon? That is a good question. I like this question a lot because I picked it. And also because you have a really cool spelling of your name. And Christian's just a really sick name anyway. Magista style silo. I would honestly say, I don't have them with me. They're on the other side of the boot wall. The new, well, I would honestly say that if you're talking Magista Obra 1, the closest thing you're going to get in today's day and age really is the Luna 2. The Luna 2 is very Magista feeling, in my opinion. It's got a little bit of a different shape, obviously. It's more of a phantom shape. But in terms of being a knit, comfortable upper that's going to fit most people, the Luna 2 really is like the closest thing we have to Magista on today's market. I don't really think there's other things on the market that would be similar to that. I would actually argue that the Shadow 3 is pretty close in terms of like a super, super soft knit material. So that's something to consider as well. But really, Nike's own Luna 2 is pretty close. And I genuinely believe that. I think it's a great combination between GX2 is like Magista Obra 1 mixed with Hypervenom DF and some other things. It's really cool. So yeah. All right. We are done with the Boot Report episode 3. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really helps. And click the links down below if you guys are interested in signing up for the free newsletter with some of the more comprehensive analysis of the sole plate. And then also I'll leave links down below for like stuff like this that are really, really helpful if you are a player that often struggles with the laces not coming up high enough on the boot. This is a very inexpensive tool and it works flawlessly. I have had so much fun with this basically during the prototype testing phase, I essentially say to a brand, look, I'm going to rip this boot apart. I'm going to make it really work for me. And then I'm going to give you all the changes that I made and you're going to implement that. So that's what I do. All right. USA out. See you guys in the next video.